Line to center. It's a 5-hit game for Fernando. Leadoff single starts the eighth. Popped out to second base. First time up. Starts with a deep left field. It is back. It is gone. The
Hello and welcome to Padres Playback. I'm Bob, he's Bill, that's Cooper, and today we're going to get into everything trade deadline, the Padres' red hot month of July, surging coming into the wild card race, and just going to get into all the transactions that happened on, in my opinion, the best day in baseball, trade deadline day.
Yeah, what a deadline, huh? I thought we were gonna do nothing for quite a while, but buzzer beater for sure.
Super.
100%. If Preller does anything, it's give us heart attacks, just like the Padres do all year. And we ended up with, like you said, Bill, that buzzer beater, bringing in Casey, which we'll talk more about later today. But yeah, great deadline. I'm very happy with what we pulled off, especially given our limited farm. And I don't want to dive too far into it, so we can talk more about it later. But great deadline day from my side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about some housekeeping stuff, huh? Past couple series. Let's dive into all that.
So if you sort of look at who's hot right now in the National League, I think everybody would be telling you the hottest team in the National League right now is us. Over our past 10 games, we're 8-2. And, you look at the schedule, we're playing teams that we should beat, but there's a pretty big portion of the season where we weren't really doing that. And especially, with the deadline approaching, everybody sort of looked around who follows this team religiously and was like, the series at home against the Giants is sort of the delineation line between whether we buy or we sell. And I think, despite everything that went into that series, the pitching chaos, all that stuff, we played some of our better ball, especially offensively, and we looked like a competent, fringe playoff team. And I think with the additions that we have made today, and we'll talk about that more later, we're looking like a team that's getting hot at the right time. And if any of us who watch baseball for long enough know that that is the most dangerous thing about playoff baseball, it's not who's the best team in March through October. It's who gets hot at the right time. And I do think our offense is surging. And with some reinforcements on the way, our pitching staff will look a lot better too.
100%. We note that in the last 10 games we've been a pretty hot team. Again, admittedly against some clubs that are not so good. Looking at teams like the Giants, the Marlins, either trending down, although the Marlins I believe just swept the Phillies in the last few days. But we made them look pretty bad, and we made the Giants look not so great either. Bar that first game, if I'm remembering that series correctly. Looking at all of July, or since our last episode, rather, because it has been a while, and I want to apologize on our behalf for that. It has been a fat minute since we recorded an episode for you guys. Life gets in the way for all of us, right? I had a trip I had to go on. Bob's getting ready for his changes in his life, and I don't know about Bill, but if two of us are gone, we can't have an episode.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for your patience with us. I want to note that real quick. But looking at the team since our last episode, not the best results. They've been 15 and 17. But we've seen, like Bob and Bill both noted, the offense is getting real, real hot. We have, 6 players in our starting 9 who are batting over an 800 OPS, which is incredible to see. And with the rotation improvements we've made today with this deadline, I definitely think this is a team that is in a position to make a solid wild card push, if not further.
Yeah, I think we kind of had like two different like kind of themes in the 2 months that we just went through, right? I feel like in June it was like the pitching was solid, but the offense is like so bad that you forget that the pitching wasn't that good. And then in July, the offense like really woke up with specifically with Manny and Jackson heating up and Ty having the month that he had. But the pitching was obviously not there, right? I think coming out of KC, I felt like, I don't know if we should buy or not because this team seems like they're pretty far away. And then I remember kind of heading into that road trip the last 2 weeks of the season of July, I had thought we'd probably take 3 out of 4 from Atlanta because we've just had their number. Didn't happen. Thought we would take 2 out of 3 from the Marlins, just because they were kind of struggling into that series. Um, we ended up sweeping them. They were struggling in some kind of bad way. By the way, they went on to sweep the Phillies after we swept them, and the Phillies swept us. So baseball, right? The Rockies series was. I knew we were gonna take both of those games, but I didn't expect it to come down to be that close. And then I also expected us to kind of sweep the split the first 2 games with the Giants. So the last 2 weeks didn't go the way I thought it was going to go, but taking 3 out of 4 from San Francisco was huge, right? It kind of led us to today, which obviously, when you're 1 game back in the wild card, like you have no choice but to buy, right? So that's kind of like my thought process on the last couple of weeks. Let's just, jump right ahead. There's not a lot of housekeeping stuff, to talk about, but let's jump right ahead into the trade deadline. It was a wild day. It was a very hard day to focus at work. But fortunately, I was
Yeah,
able to
that's
pull
right.
it off. Yeah, but talk to me about your thoughts on the deadline. We could start with Major League Baseball overall, and then we can kind of dive into the Padres. How's that sound?
Yeah, good. I mean, I think we got to talk about it. I mean, the news for everybody is obviously Scooble going up north
Yep.
and joining the Dodgers, and I think there's a lot of people, and I talked about it on my Threads account. I went on a little rant like 12 hours afterwards, who they have a lot of displaced anger around the Terry Scooble trade. I
Hmm.
understand why people would be angry. I myself was very upset. But it's the hallmark of a systematic problem that the Tigers did not extend Tarek Skubal, and we all looked around and we're like, they have the best farm system. They're going to make the best package. They really didn't, kind of, because they knew they were going to sign him anyway, because stuff was leaking that like he was wanting to go there in free agency, and everybody else was like, well, he's only going to be like a 10-star rental, and yeah, it really sucked. It really sucked, especially I was watching Jay Cronenworth hit that walk off against the Giants,
Yeah.
and then it was almost like 5 seconds later, I got the buzz on my phone, and I was like, "Dude, are you serious?" Like, we all
Yeah.
knew it was gonna happen, but like seeing it is different than like knowing it. It just it really sucked. It really sucked. But I think there are other teams that I would have liked to see step up. I'm really talking straight at you, Brewers. Last year, you got swept in the NLCS. You have Jacob Mizorowski, who's the best right-handed pitcher in the National League. You have a great farm system. You should have stepped up and made an offer. I'm looking at you, Tampa Bay Rays. The
Yeah.
AL East is wide open. You have a great offensive core. You pitch somewhere that pitchers love to throw. Everybody who throws over at the Trop, they're like, dude, my curveball breaks so much more here. My sweeper is nasty. Like, even guys who are on the Dodgers, Blake Snell and Glass now were like, yeah, I love throwing at the Trop. I love throwing off their mound. There's something about it that they really like. Why didn't you pony up? Like, people say the ultimate, so act like it. And I said on my Threads account, I was like, the thing I respect the most about Peter Seidler is that he said he wanted to win a World Series and he acted like it. And forever, I will respect and revere Peter Seidler for doing that, because so many people are afraid to do that.
Yeah, I guess the kind of we should probably spend some time unpacking the Google deal because that's probably the biggest name that moved this deadline. But I would say the counterpoint to the Brewers and the Rays not coming about is when you have two franchises that are historically reliant on a strong farm system to keep contending every couple of years. It's kind of hard to give those away knowing that like he was gonna end up in LA anyways, right? And when I initially saw the returns for it, I thought I was like, oh, they didn't give up any like of their top three for Scooble. I think they gave up the number 5 prospect still in the top 25, but at the same time, I was like, uh, you know, um, it's interesting. I just think like it's hard for the other teams to want to pony up more. So the more I thought about that trade, the more I realized like, the Dodgers gave up good prospects, but there was really no competition. I saw a post earlier today. The rumor was that the Tigers picked up the phone and called the Dodgers first. I don't know how true that is, but if that's the case, then there's nothing anybody else could have done to that would have like changed the outcome. We all knew it was inevitable, and it happened. It is what it is.
Yeah, I thoroughly expected the trade to work out that way in some capacity. I had no clue what the package would look like. Honestly, I don't keep up with the Dodgers farm system super heavily. Um, it's one of those things it's frustrating to see, being from the club down south, right? Seeing the Dodgers continue to add to their team, continue to improve on the talent side at least. But it's indicative of a bigger problem with baseball, right? I mean, you could talk smack about the Dodgers for deferring tons of money and for having more money than everyone. But the MLB are the ones who gave them that money, right? Yes, they're in a big market. They're going to have more money than a team from a small market. It's the MLB's decision that let them keep, I believe it's an extra about $70 million a year,
On the TV deal,
which
yeah.
sort of opened the door for those deferred contracts, right? Because having that cash on hand is what makes those things happen. It's why the Padres weren't able to sign Aaron Judge, right? If you look a couple years back when the Padres wanted to make that move, they they were going to defer some of his money,
Yeah.
and it didn't go through because the league wasn't cool with us taking a loan to
Yeah.
pay for it. The Dodgers don't need to take a loan to pay for it. They have the cash on hand,
Yeah.
partially assisted by the MLB's decision, but not entirely. So it illustrates a bigger problem with baseball, and one that honestly, off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure how to fix.
Yep.
Because the easy answer is salary cap, right? It's the easy thing to say. But that doesn't change the contracts that already exist,
Yeah.
right? And it doesn't, a salary cap doesn't do anything without a floor. And I don't know, it's easy to say and see how in the long run it would benefit competition, but I'm always going to be on the side of workers and always going to
Yep.
be on the side of players.
Yeah.
And so I don't think jumping into a cap is the solution, right? So looking back at this individual deal in isolation, it's some pretty good prospects for a 10 start rental,
Yep.
right? Um, of course he will resign with them. I don't see a world where he doesn't unless someone else offers him, you know, the most ridiculous contract we've ever seen in baseball.
$1 billion, yeah.
Like borderline
Yeah.
most egregious contract in sports history.
Mhm.
Cristiano Ronaldo in Saudi levels of absurd
Yeah.
contract.
Yeah.
Or
But
stake.
it's ownership stake, right? Like the Messi contract with
Yeah.
MLS. Um,
Yeah.
but that's going to be the reality. The Dodgers are going to have Tarek Skubal next year, and probably for at least another 4 to 5 years after that, if not more.
Yeah.
And we'll see how the MLBPA responds to it. We'll see how the MLB responds to it. I think it will probably result in a lockout going into 2027, but I'm optimistic that people who are smarter than me in those negotiating rooms can come to an agreement that balances the league a little more effectively,
Yeah.
without being so broad and simple as salary floor and cap.
And it's weird to me
Definitely
that
smarter than me.
and it's weird to me that the discourse has like developed into the Dodgers broke baseball and salary cap is needed and all that stuff. And I feel like a lot of that is dumbing down what the actual issue is in baseball, right? I think you have two ends of the spectrum. I think the Dodgers do have an unfair advantage with the extra money they're able to keep in their TV deal, right? Absolutely. But you also have owners who don't give a shit. Like that's the other end of the spectrum, right? So if you want to fix the competitive balance, you got to address it at both ends. So no, the Dodgers didn't break baseball, but I also feel like it's this, it's like just not like to act like they don't have an advantage over the rest of the field is just not the play, right? Like they do have an advantage. Like
Mhm.
TV deals matter, market size matter. Like hell, what's the average median income in Los Angeles versus Milwaukee, right? Like, a lot of those factors into how much money a team has to spend, right? So no, the Dodgers didn't break baseball, and I'm never gonna say that the Dodgers broke baseball because if you claim the Dodgers broke baseball, then you're saying like, "Hey, this guy owns every property in Monopoly plus the railroads. He cheated. It's time to start the game over." Like it doesn't work that way. They didn't break the rules, right? So I just like the discourse around it has become kind of weird. It feels very watered down. It feels like dumbing down the issue. If it was that simple, we wouldn't be headed for a lockout, right? Like, you know what I mean? So yeah.
And
And
honestly, it's
also, I
really
I
funny to
want
me. Oh, go for it, Bob. Go for it.
I I think some people might hear what I said in the open of sort of like the Terry Skubal trade talk as me being like maybe pro owner. I am not in the slightest. I think that for too long, I think there's some credence to saying that owners could if they wanted to, because they're making so much money from owning a baseball team, and they're too hesitant to give out a big contract, especially to pitchers. And I get the concerns, but I think this is so bad that even people who were pro owner, which I wasn't, have lost what little good faith they still had in the institution of the owners and MLB heading into these labor negotiations. Like, that's how upset people are. And I think maybe for the first real time in these labor negotiation talks, pretty much everybody's on the side of the players. And maybe the first time ever in labor talks between the league owners and, all that stuff. So I think this is a sort of big, like, potential watershed moment for a lot of these, like, talks. And a lot of either big changes will get done or will be locked out for the entire year.
No,
And while I
absolutely.
see that, it's also really funny to me that this is the deal that pushed it over the edge.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's not even a new
Yes.
contract. It's not even a new contract
No.
they're
Yeah.
signing. It's just a trade. But somehow
Yeah.
68 million of deferred money to Otani every year,
Yeah.
that didn't make people say the Dodgers broke baseball. Kyle Tucker getting a $55 million signing bonus to avoid taxes and then a $1 million salary
Mhm.
for the year, that's not breaking baseball. But the Tarek Skubal trade is. So it's really interesting to see how the discourse plays out among the fandom, because it seems like, at least in my algorithm, and of course everyone sees the internet differently because it's all shaped, different ways for different people. But as far as what I'm seeing, this is the trade that's making people say the Dodgers broke baseball, as opposed to
Yeah.
so many
Yeah.
other contracts. It's not even deferred money. They have 1.2
No.
billion in
Not yet.
deferred money, and Scooble, well, yeah, he probably will get some, but as of right now, Scooble is none of it,
Yeah.
and somehow
Well,
this is the one piece that's making people say the Dodgers broke baseball.
yeah, it's like 9 million that they're on the hook for the rest of the year or something like that. Which thought some people thought it was going to be an issue for other teams to take it on. Which I don't. I don't think $9 million is. It's like a drop of a pin for a baseball franchise, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, I think it is interesting. You make a good point, Coop. People like use this trade as in like the Dodgers broke baseball because of this. Like, no, like the Dodgers have been. I don't even want to say they broke baseball. They're just very well ran. Like the
Yeah.
deals that they gambled on, we gambled on some deals too, right? But like those deals are blowing up in our faces while like Freddie Freeman is aging, very gracefully, and while Mookie had a down year, like all those deals that all the money that they handed out is working out, except for Cal Tucker this year. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. I think we could sit here and talk about the Dodgers and Scooble for a full hour, but this is a show about the Padres. So, but let's run back on the trade deadline. Bob, you want to run us through all the deals that happened today? There was a lot of deals.
Yeah, so unfortunately, we don't have enough time to get through all of the deals. So Cooper and myself decided to sort of
Yeah.
highlight some of the bigger ones. Obviously, for us, Robbie Ray was acquired for Miguel Melendez, who was the Padres number 4, or Miguel Mendez, sorry, the number 4 prospect in our system, and Johnny L. Hernandez, who was our number 9 prospect. And then the buzzer beater that we were all talking about at 2:59:59 Pacific time, AJ Preller swung for Casey Maez and Gage Workman for Cash Mayfield, who was our number 2 prospect, and Jackson Wolf. And then later, Hunter Stratton was acquired for Andrew Moore from the Pirates. And then the Red Sox, sort of the biggest bombshell before the Preller bomb at like 2:59 was the Adley Rutschman
Yeah.
trade. And this is a complex one because Jake Rogers was already sort of floating around. I think he got just sort of attached into that after being DFA'd by the Tigers. He got picked up by Baltimore and sort of ended up in that trade altogether. But they sent over for Anthony Nyason, Carlos Narvaez, their current backup catcher, maybe starting catcher. I don't know how they divide time. Kason Witherspoon, who's their number 4, and Indy Azakar, who's their number 5. So the Orioles sent their number 2, 4, and 5, or they received the 2, 4, and 5 from the Red Sox, and an MLB starter and a player to be named later. that is a massive package for Adley Rutschman to go be the backstop for the Red Sox. And it's their first real start catcher in a long time, which I think fired up their fan base quite a bit. And then the Yankees, they got Heliot Ramos for Henry Lane. Caden Kent, I think that's how you say it. I think it's Caden. It's Jeff Kent's kid. Found that out. So he's a legacy. Um, and uh, That was for Heliot Ramos, Luis Garcia Jr. for 4 pitchers, including Jack Siebert, their number 14 prospect, and Ben Garble. I don't know how you say
Grable.
that. Their number 25, Grable, their number 25 prospect. And then the big one, this team was wheeling and dealing all day, the Chicago Cubs. They got Clay Holmes and Tyrone Taylor for their number 2 prospect, Jefferson Rojas. And even before the deadline really got cooking, the DFA Jameson Taillon. They traded for Ryan Zephyrdjian from the Angels for Moises Ballesteros, their rookie catcher, and Mason McGuire, their number 18 prospect. Jace Long was also a part of that deal, the number 10 prospect. He plays third base. Jace Beck was moved for Braxton Garrett of the Marlins, and Brett Bateman and Ty Southinsay for Kevin Gossman. So they picked up pretty much a whole new rotation. And then the Phillies picked up Luis Ariz and Caleb Killian for 2 pitching prospects. And that's sort of all the big moves. You know, the Giants and the Angels are completely fire selling. So
As they
it
should
was
be.
quite the day. Things were moving. Yeah, as they should be. And the Rockies, they moved Senzatella. They moved all the people we thought they were going to move. There was no real pickup outside of those that I was shocked by. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah. Let's just dive right into, the Padres acquisition, the the big deals of the big deals. We knew the rotation was going to be something that was going to be addressed, right? I think with the limited prospect capital that we've had some discussions pre deadline between the three of us. It just wouldn't make sense to go get a big bat. It's a need, but it's not a pressing need. So it was good to see Robbie Ray got announced earlier in the day, and then Casey at the buzzer beater. But let's give me your thoughts about the trades and whatnot. Let's start with you, Coop. Let's start with Robbie Ray. Give me your thoughts about Robbie Ray.
Yeah. So Robbie Ray is a name that's very familiar to me, being a MLB The Show aficionado. Um, Seeing that he's been solid for many years, right? Previous Cy Young winner. He's definitely past his prime. And costs a little much for his performance now, I think, just by a touch. But I definitely think he's a vast improvement over Herman Marquez. Honestly, the biggest standout of this deadline for me is that I don't think we'll ever have to watch Marquez pitch again. I don't think we'll ever have to watch Canning pitch again. Maybe in relief. I don't think we'll have to watch Giolito ever pitch again, right? A lot of these names that, fingers crossed, I never have to watch them start a game, at least for the Padres, or the pseudo start, with an opener playing 1 or 2 innings. But looking specifically at Robbie, I do think there are players that we might have been able to get with this package who are a little better.
Agreed.
Guys like the Dustin Mays of the world, right? I think are players we could have gotten with a package like this, but I have full faith that Preller did everything he could to get a lot of those guys who were disappearing early, because early in the deadline, we kept seeing pitchers go off the board quick,
Yeah.
right?
Pitchers.
So many names that were on my short list being like 15 to 20 people
Yeah.
of Padres or of pitchers where I was like, if the Padres get these guys, I feel good, right? And they kept disappearing, and I was getting more and more scared throughout the day. But then seeing that Robbie Ray deal get finalized, I think it was around noon Pacific, maybe a little bit earlier. I started to have a little more confidence, and seeing that we got some cash too. It looks like we won't have to pay out the rest of his deal. The math off the top of my head, I'm not sure what it looks like. I know he was owed $25 million for the season, so if I had to ballpark, we're probably looking at about $10 million left owed. And it looks like the Giants took a little bit of that blow just to get those prospects, because like we said, they're in that full fire sale mode, and I'm excited to see what the Giants do now. As they're going into that full rebuild, it looks like they spent a lot of effort on rebuilding that farm, and it'll definitely be interesting to see where they look in the next, probably 3 to 4 years, and see if they can rebound and we can have a really strong NL West. Obviously, I'd like the Padres to be at the top of that NL West, but it's always fun when you got a division full of competent teams where you can get 3 in the playoffs, right? Have three, two teams from your division take those wild card slots. So maybe the Giants can get back to a world like that in the near future. But they are fire selling with Robbie Ray going, Luis Ariz going, Heliot Ramos, I believe, was from the Giants, if I'm not
Yep.
tweaking over that,
Yep.
and other
Yeah.
players that they sold for prospects. So I'm overall happy with the Robbie Ray trade. I think he'll be a really solid 3 to 4 spot in our rotation once the dust is settled and our injured pitchers are back to being healthy. And I'm excited to see what he can do for our organization.
Yeah. I think, for me, we talked about sort of like in the morning, it was all pitchers going. And it was a lot of guys who we had talked about. I personally didn't want to touch Freddie Peralta with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
My wife is a Mets fan. I've watched him be absolute garbage all year. And then I got reports in the morning. It's like they were trying to rage bait me. They're like, Prowler's talking about Kodai Singh, and I was like, I swear to God, if we go get Kodai Singh, who has like an 8 ERA right now, I'm gonna literally be done. And so for me, seeing Robbie Ray come across my timeline as being a Padre was a start to an amazing day. I really like Robbie's stuff. He has a great slider. He's like mostly a fastball slider guy. And his Savant page doesn't really jump out at you, especially when you get into like the underlying numbers. But also, I think there's something to be said for just the eye test. I like analytics as much as the next guy, but is Robbie Ray an immediate upgrade? Yes. And is the people we gave up, are they going to help us out immediately? No. And so I sort of operate from the standpoint, like, if anybody tells you that you got like a massive haul that's going to change your franchise, or you got fleeced on deadline day, they don't know ball.
Yeah.
Like the earliest you can tell is like 2 years after the fact. More likely, more like 4 or 5 years after the fact. But Robbie Ray helps us win games right now. I think I sent it to all you guys. His last 10 starts, he has a 1.65 ERA and a 7-0 record. It's better than anything we got over 10 starts the entire season. So I'm not expecting Robbie Ray to be a guy that you will be like, he's going to go game 2 right after Michael King. I think he might be like a game 3 guy, like in a 5-game series, and he's going to be a quality starter for us. He goes deep into games. He's just like really having a year where he's coming back into the form. He had Tommy John, I think it was in 23, he pitched like 5 games in 2024. And he saw a little bit of that last year in 25, but now he looks a lot like his old self. Not like prime Robbie Ray, but the pants are still tight and that fastball is still kicking, and I'm glad he's a Padre. And also, his name works perfectly. I'm going to call him Pod Ray, PAD-RAY. He is Padre Robbie.
Yeah.
Just getting it out.
I like that a lot. Before I jump into Robbie, my thoughts on Robbie, I do want to point out, like, I think Padres fan after the season specifically probably have a little bit more of like a cringe reaction whenever we hear about prospects being dealt, right? We're watching James Wood and CJ Abrams become superstars in front of our own eyes in Washington, right? So I think I understand why there is such a knee-jerk reaction every time a prospect gets traded from our fan base, because we've seen guys like Trey Turner go be good elsewhere. Uh who's the pitcher who's with the Yankees now? That's slipping my head. He just came back from the IL. Shoot. He was
Yankees just came back from Ryan Weathers.
No, not Ryan Weathers. He was a Brave for a little bit.
He was a Brave for
Fried, yeah, Max Fried, yeah.
Max
Watching him, I
Fried.
think the
He
reaction,
dealt him for Upton.
yeah, which Upton was good for us. Like, he wasn't bad.
He was.
So I get the knee jerk reaction from this fan base because we've seen prospects we've dealt with go elsewhere and blossom. But as I've kind of said all along, you're pot committed, right? You've committed so much money to Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis. You've committed long term to Jackson Merrill. You've committed long term to Jake Cronenworth. You can't fold now. You just can't, especially when you're one game out of the wild card, right? So my initial reaction was I thought we gave up too much, just because Robbie wasn't very high on my list of pitchers that I wanted for us. But it's the cost to do business. It's the cost to do business. We either give up too much, or we go for it and we try to make the postseason, which the Padres have never made 3 postseasons in a row. So this would be a franchise first, right? So I'm okay with the price now that I've kind of like stewed on it, for the rest of the day. Um, I will say the one thing that jumped out at me that made me kind of like, oh my God, what are we getting here? His expected ERA is 4.42, a full run and a half run more than his actual ERA. His FIP is like 4.35. So this tells us a story of a pitcher that's gotten extremely lucky with favorable conditions, right? But when you think more about it, Oracle plays a lot like Pecco. He's got a really good defense behind him right now. Like we've seen Jackson and Nando do crazy things all year. So I think we'll be fine. I definitely think he probably slots into, if I were to kind of map out a rotation for a postseason, given like health and everything, I would probably go Casey Mize first. I would go Michael King second, and then I'd probably give Robbie Ray the ball for game 3, and then Pivetta for game 4, if that's how I'd line it up. And the other thing to add to it too, having a lefty starter in our rotation now, it's gonna be good for us because we're gonna run into a lot of teams that are very lefty heavy in the postseason, right? Philly with Schwarber, with Bryce Harper, the Dodgers with Otani, Freddie Freeman. Well, Freddie Freeman could hit anybody, but I think that's definitely a plus that I didn't look at initially. So having a lefty in our rotation now for any possible playoff matchup is nice to have. But let's jump into the biggest piece of it all, the one that is giving us all the hopium in the world. At what 2:59 p.m. Pacific Standard, AJ Preller pulled off Casey Mize. Talk to me about Casey Mize. Let's start with you again, Coop.
Demon. Absolute demon. Talking about AJ Preller there.
Yeah.
Incredible move for him to pull off when he did it. And one thing I do want to note real quick, because it applies to Robbie Ray and Casey Mize, that is a little unfortunate, but I think can work out well for us. They are both technically rentals. They're both on expiring contracts. With Robbie Ray wrapping up a contract that comes off of Cy Young performances at $25 million a year.
Good call out.
Casey Mize is making relative pennies, but he's in his last year of arbitration.
Yep.
So he'll hit free agency next year. So these are players who we could lose. They're not locked in. And I know one thing I was looking for in my short list I mentioned before was control.
Yep.
Pretty much everyone who was in that short list for me, Casey Mize was in there, but he wasn't really up there because he doesn't have control.
Yeah.
However, we have heard through Kevin Acey and some other sources, it looks like Preller might have a little bit less of a leash on payroll. So I'm optimistic that at least one of these guys, ideally Casey, with him being a hell of a lot younger than Robbie is, can get a big extension. Perform well here, enjoy being in San Diego, America's finest city, and lock in with us for a more long-term deal. That's my hope and dream, but one that I feel like is not that far out of the realm of possibility, especially with new ownership coming in. I'm sure we've said it on this podcast at least once. I know we say it in the group chat. Feels like every week, but you don't spend $4 billion on a team to not spend on payroll.
Absolutely.
So I'm highly optimistic that at least one of these guys can get extended, whether it's Robbie Ray getting the type of extension that takes him through the end of his career, or Casey Mize getting, that meaty deal, right? That fills out most of a big leaguer's or a star big leaguer's career. But looking at his performance this year, his win-loss isn't great, but I think win-loss is kind of a bullshit stat, if I'm being completely honest. Half of it's dependent on your offense, right? Of course, a guy who goes out and allows, 1 run, 2 runs every single time they start, they're going to get more wins than losses, but if your offense can't score, it doesn't matter. So looking more at the other numbers, right? He's got a 2.7 ERA on the season. He's pitched 86.2 innings in those 16 starts, which, I mean, what's the math on that? That's almost, or it's a little over 6 innings a game, right? He can be that inning eater for us.
Yep.
Got 85 Ks in those 86 innings, a whip under 1. All those are career bests for him, with the exception of maybe the strikeouts.
Yeah.
That might end up a little bit lower than last year. And just looking at his Savant page, I mean, I'm sure Bob and Bill are better at reading Savant pages than I am, even though I love my advanced analytics. But there's a whole lot of red. There's a whole lot of red on that page. So Casey Mize is a guy I'm really excited to have in our ball club, in our locker room, and someone that I cannot wait to see pitch. And I think that could happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
With his last start being a scratch, or his last expected start being a scratch, with him being in trade deadline conversations. So he hasn't pitched since July 25th. I would not be surprised if we see him as soon as tomorrow, or Wednesday,
Yeah,
honestly, at the latest.
Yeah, dead on. Before
yeah, that
we get to you, Bob, real quick, a quick cheat sheet to read the Savant pages. Red is good, blue is bad. Okay, Bob.
so I love us picking up Casey Maez, and I'm gonna give a couple reasons why. His stuff reminds me a lot of Nick Pavetta's. His fastball is not gonna wow you. He sits about 93. League average is like 95, but he has a high ride fastball. So it comes out and it spins a ton, and people are gearing up for it. They think it's gonna drop, and it just sticks like a dart at the top of the zone. Pavetta that pairs that with a really big 12-6 curveball. Mize has the splitter, so it's faster and it ducks about the same, and he gets a lot of chase on that, and he can go north to south really well. And I think getting him in here in the pitching lab with Niebla, like to me, a lot of the things that jump out and why Casey gets hit hard is not stuff. It's like selection, figuring out like when to use what pitches, putting guys away in the count, sort of the stuff that we've seen Niebla take these guys a lot like Pavetta and turn them into monsters. And so for me, this is a big win. I know this was at the top of Billy's list. Casey was towards like 3, 4 on my list. I was really gunning for Emerson Hancock or George Kirby. I think that might have been some hopium and a little bit of illusion, but I love Casey and I'm very excited. I'm very excited that Casey Mize is a Padre. His last start on the 25th, he looked great. He went 6 1/3, and that is exactly what the Padres need from a guy in their rotation as soon as possible. You saw it in the Giants series. Yuki Matsui, of all people, went 3 innings and
Yeah,
threw 49 pitches, and he looked really good. Don't get me wrong, he looked really good, but we cannot expect that.
yeah,
Like, this is everything that we needed at the trade deadline. And I'm sort of with Coop. I think we're going to probably try to re-sign one of these guys. I
yeah,
think, Jose Feliciano and Quanza Jones are going to try to open up the bank account and spend some cash. He's a big fastball guy, throws it over 40% of the time
yeah,
to right-handers and 33% of the time to left-handed batters, or I might have that backwards. So we have somebody who's just going to come in and bully people with a fastball and go deep into games. And, you know, I feel really good going into the Diamondback series because they didn't really add anybody, and we need to win those games to jump them. And I think we have the guys to do it. And I think we might see Rob as early as maybe Thursday,
yeah.
probably Wednesday. If Myers goes on Tuesday, I think they're going to go back to back because he just went against us on the 30th.
On the 30th, correct.
Yeah, I was at my desk. I was like, well, the trade
Yeah.
deadline's over, and then I got a little notification on my phone. I was like, bang, that's my guy.
Yeah.
Like, I am a Preller like defender. Like,
Yeah.
I think too many people come for AJ, and I think too many people play too much MLB The Show. I think they know how to be a GM. And I respect that AJ Preller every single deadline, every single winter when Peter was alive, was like, we're going to go try to win a World Series and we're going to act like it. We're going to sit at the big boy table and we're going to make swings. And sort of like what Billy said earlier about the prospect talk, like to me, I was always taught when I was watching baseball that prospects are suspects. And until you see them come, until you see them play on the field and like turn into that all-star or show you good at bats, you never know. And you always take somebody who is MLB ready if you're trying to compete right now.
Yeah.
And we went out and did that. Like Coop said, Herman Marquez is probably never going to throw another start for us,
Yeah.
which I feel great about.
Yeah.
Griffin Canning, I don't want him anywhere near my rotation. I will throw him into the Coronado Bay myself. Like, I don't want him anywhere near a start. Like, and we have that. We have that. And on another note, Nick Pavetta and Joe Musgrove, they're starting their rehab tomorrow.
That's right.
So, like, we have favorable baseball coming up. We have legit starters coming back, at least one. We don't really know about Joe. Nobody knows about Joe. But we have two fresh faces who are going to come out and ball and are going from teams who are not competing to a team that's in the thick of a wild card race with a rabid fan base looking at their third postseason berth in a row for the first time ever.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think they're going to come and they're going to be fired up. They're going to get up.
Yeah, and I'm probably as big of an AJ defender as there is out there. I mean, I just think, my argument has always been as much as we, you know, mope and complain about him tearing apart the farm, like the scouting department has rebuilt it. Like it's over and over again, right? The Trey Turner stuff was like almost a decade ago at this point, right? And then, he reloads it with a bunch of other guys that are thriving, and becoming top prospect. I'm not gonna lie to you and say it doesn't hurt watching James Wood and CJ Abram do what they do in Washington. I'm not gonna lie to you and say it's not gonna hurt when LDV comes up in Vegas and starts hitting 500-foot bombs in that summer heat, right? I'm not gonna lie to you and say like that's not gonna hurt. But it's the cost of doing business. We are in the most successful stretch of franchise history. There's no other era that comes close to this, except if you think about like 96 and 98, right? Even then there was a couple years of like bad baseball in between it, right? So like it's just the cost of doing business, and I wouldn't have anybody else be at the wheel of this run other than AJ Preller. Like there's nobody in baseball that could do this better. But diving into Casey Mize, how do you say his name exactly? Is it Mize or what did you say it was, Bob?
Mize,
Mize?
like Baez with
Okay.
an M, like
Uh,
Mize.
You said Mize? Yeah, I thought you said Mize. Is it Mize or Mize? What do you think, Coop?
I think it's Mize.
I'll roll with my eyes till corrected, but I'll have to look into it now that he's
Yeah.
in the brown and gold.
But anyways, 20 some hours ago before the deadline, I posted on Threads. I wonder what, after seeing the rental price tag for Turk Skubal was, I wonder if we could sneak in there and offer Cash Mayfield and prospect for him. And lo and behold, AJ did that at 259.59. I'm excited. Former number one pick in 2018. A guy who's coming into his own, just having an absolute great year, right? The Pavetta comparison is dead on, and guess who had their career year under our pitching coach, Nick Pavetta.
Licky P.
Yeah, so I'm with you guys. I think there's not much else to touch on. He gives us the bona fide ace that we need to make a postseason run. He's somebody I'm comfortable giving the ball to in game one. He's not a blow you away elite arm talent. I don't think we have. There's not many blow you away elite talents in baseball in general. But this guy knows how to pitch. And he's shown it in the past 2 seasons or so. Health when he's healthy, right? And I'm excited to watch Ruben get to work with him. I'm with you. I think Jose and Kwanzaa didn't buy the team to just sit and watch the Dodgers do their thing. Like they bought the team because they want to be competitive. You don't spend $4 billion for it to just sit there, right? So I think there's a good chance that we could re-sign him in the offseason. Like you two, I rather us prioritize signing him first over over Robbie. But if Robbie comes and takes like a cheap deal, I wouldn't mind having him in the rotation to eat innings either, because at the end of the day, that guy's a pitcher, right? So I don't know. Yeah, I feel very a lot more confident in our chances now, just because AJ addressed the 2 biggest needs that we needed as far as like the deadline goes. Like all of us are tired of watching Marquez go out there on a very short leash, right? You get in trouble in the third, time to go. At the same time, all of us are tired of like just this, inconsistency with the rotation. So it's nice to have 2 other guys that we could trust on, along with, Michael. Nick coming back is huge. I'm like you both. I don't know what we're gonna get from Joe. If we get, a 5-6 inning guy, ERA north of 4.5, that would exceed my expectations for him personally. So
Oh yeah.
huge buzzer beater by AJ. I feel a lot more confident about chances now than we did before. And the thing is, like, we're all in. We didn't move any of our expiring deals. We could have sold off Ty because he's having a career year. We didn't. We kept him. We could have moved Marhone and got some prospects out of it. We kept Adrian, right? So I mean, another trade deadline masterclass by AJ Preller, if you will, right? Like it's just,
Yeah.
you
100%.
know, I was getting ready to be disappointed if all we got was Robbie, and then here comes Casey. So yeah, just overall good deadline for us. I feel a lot more confident about our chances going forward. Let's switch gears a little bit, do something fun. Deadline awards. Go ahead. Sorry.
I just one more thing about
Yeah.
the prospects to quell everybody's mind. Miguel Mendez has a 4.49 ERA right now.
Yeah.
And he's been between high A and double A. And Joniel Hernandez, he's 17, guys.
Yep.
He's 17. He's not projected to come up until 2031.
Yeah.
And, I think the one, honestly, if there's anybody who comes back and hurts us immediately off of this trade deadline, it's probably going to be Jackson Wolf.
Yeah.
But that's fine. And we also didn't talk about Hunter Stratton,
Yeah.
who we picked up post deadline. Big slider guy, right-hander relief pitcher from the Pirates who got outrighted, I think, or sent down to AAA for Andrew Moore, who's in AA right now. So it's not like we gave up any of the big boys. Like everybody in our farm system who we're excited about is Ethan Salas.
That's true.
That's pretty much it. No disrespect to anybody else, but like it's pretty much him and then a bunch of nobodies.
Yeah.
And somehow AJ Preller dangled a cookie and got back the second best pitcher in the Tigers rotation and probably the second best rental pitcher at the deadline.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think we
I don't know.
Go ahead, Coop.
A last like statistics fact-based note on prospects, because I definitely was in that same ballpark where I was getting pissed, right? I'm 22. I was 10, 11 years old when Trey Turner happened, right? So for most of my development, I've been seeing the guys we develop get shipped off.
Yeah.
And I want to give one, like I said, a stat-based thing. You look at the All-Star Futures game, right? For those of you who don't keep up with it, I'm not going to lie, I don't watch a ton of All-Star Weekend either, but the Futures game is two 25-man rosters selected from the top prospects in baseball, right? Only 20% of the people who play in that game end up becoming MLB All-Stars.
Yeah.
And that's ignoring so much of a farm system, right? So don't get me wrong. I know we've got burned, and we're watching ourselves get burned live with guys like CJ Abrams and James Wood.
Yep.
But it's not like those are safe bets. And if I can trade a prospect, right now, if we had CJ Abrams and he wasn't professional yet, if I could have traded CJ Abrams for Casey Mize, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
Right. So acknowledging that prospects are gambles, and just because we're not taking those gambles, I don't think that means that I don't think that means Preller's a bad GM.
Yeah.
I think it means that other teams want to hit that diamond in the rough, and we're cool not doing that.
Yeah.
Except with guys like Ethan Salas. So it's okay to move prospects. I know we always have a depleted farm, but like we said before, it's always filling up. So understand that the prospects are they're hopes.
Yep.
Right. So seeing prospects get moved for established talents is something that will never make me tweak.
No, absolutely. I'm right on board with the both of you on that. And we joked about this in the past. If we kept James Wood, he's Kyle Blanks. Big guy, hits the ball far, doesn't do anything. Like it's just our luck, right? And I think it's easy to sit here in hindsight and judge the trade, because, with current information that gives us 2020 vision, right? Like it's very easy to sit here and say all that, but I mean, you think about it, like AJ got us two starters and hung on to Ethan Salas, and I'm actually very high Schoolcraft. 6'8" lefty, throws high 90s. You don't find those anywhere. Like elite arm talent, that kid has it, right? But as Bob alluded, Mendez, even Cash Mayfield, like they're both in high A ball right now. They're years away from being able to contribute. And Schoolcraft is in that same boat. He's barely pitching in A ball this year, and he's struggling, right? So I'm with you. Prospects, I'd move them all day for a proven talent. And even to me, I was probably the one that was getting cussed out at a lot, for suggesting that Luis Campusano has made Ethan Salas expendable. But if somebody were to, if the Mariners came to the table and said, hey, Kirby for Ethan Salas, I'm packing Ethan's bag for him, right? Like, that's an elite arm that we just added to a rotation. So yeah, I'm always going to move prospects over for proven talent time and time again, right? And people forget, like Justin Upton was good for us. Like the prospects we gave up, became good, but Justin Upton was really good for us when we had him, right? So I don't think you're gonna find, if you're tuning into this show to look for AJ Preller slander, you're not gonna find it from either of us. You know what I mean? Like it's just, I would, I grew up to a lot of like bad Padres team. What AJ doing right now is amazing. Like nothing short of amazing. And the fact that he plugged 2 holes today without losing our best prospect, he's a man.
Or Mason.
Yeah, or Mason.
Or Mason.
Yeah. Let's talk deadline awards, right? So I guess we could go one by one with this. I'll start the category and then I'll ask you guys for your opinions. Who moved the needle the most today with their moves?
Take it away, Bob.
I think for me the biggest needle mover personally was Luis Ariz going to the Phillies.
Hmm.
I love Luis Ariz, and he wasn't exactly what they were looking for. They were looking for somebody who has, left field potential, somebody who is a left-handed bat, which he is, but somebody who can, provide pop. And he's not that, but just
Yep.
follow me a little bit. You slot him into the top of the lineup, and you immediately have some of the best protection for Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, and their entire top of the lineup, and somebody who is constantly just going to move people into scoring position
Yep.
for those bigger bats. And I think he's a great second baseman. I think he's an immediate upgrade over pretty much anything they have. If you look at his outs above average, he's number one in all of baseball at second base right now. And I was saying we should have resigned him last year, and I didn't even think that was possible. As much as a Luis Ariz truther as I am, I didn't think that was possible. So I think there's a lot of like big packages, but I think the bat that helps the most, the player that helps their deadline the most for what that team specifically needs, other than ours, I'm not going to give it to ours because that was obviously the biggest needle mover for me. I'm a Padres fan.
Yeah.
But if I had to give it to somebody else, it would be Luis Ariz because he's hitting 330 again. And he looks like his old self, and he's playing better defense, and he's on a cheap deal. I think it's a great move by a great GM in Dombrowski.
Yeah, I'm gonna go towards Rutschman and the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Because I think an intra-division blockbuster trade is something you don't see a ton,
Crazy.
right? Um, the Orioles are clearly moving into retooling, rebuilding. I mean, they were looking at moving Jackson Holiday. I mean, there were conversations about him coming here. I didn't like those, but they were looking on moving on from him.
Yeah.
Even Gunnar Henderson, right? They were looking to move on from. I don't think anything went through with him as far as I saw. But they've decided that this is not their window anymore, and so they brought in a bunch of prospects. And then looking at the Red Sox, I mean, Rutschman, it's less impactful now with ABS, but I think he's one of the best framers in the game.
Yeah.
Um, always hits for high or always has high on base percentage, right? A switch hitting bat at catcher, I think, is really valuable too. So as the Red Sox are on a really hot streak, I think
Yeah.
Adley Rutschman is a piece that definitely puts them into the AL pennant conversation.
Mhm.
If you didn't consider them to be there already. So, I mean, it's easy to say Scooble to the Dodgers, but I think that just solidifies them when they were already favorites. So I don't think that's necessarily the play. I'm leaning at Rutschman to the Red Sox.
And I
Yeah.
think another thing touching with Adley is that they stole him from the Yankees.
Yep.
The Yankees
Yeah.
were looking for a catcher, and they were in on the talks, and the Red Sox said, hold the phone. He's mine now. So I think that also, for me, adds a little bit of spice to it also, that it was, between the two of them, and the Red Sox ponied up and got him. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of interesting. I want to kind of jump in on the Orioles piece with their window. I guess the Orioles fans are probably looking at us and like you see how small your competitive window is when you have a team that's constantly buying in your division. Like they've dealt with the Yankees for Lord knows how long, right? I think both the Yankees and the Red Sox got better this deadline, but we can't discount the fact that like the Tampa Bay Rays with a new roof, they're really freaking going for it, right? Freddie
Yeah.
Peralta, I know, struggling a little bit this year, but the stuff is still there, so
Yep.
another one of those, maybe change the scenery and morph into like a superstar that carries them in the playoffs. Possible, right? They got Liam Hicks from the Marlins. They're really loading up, and as of today, as of this recording, they are still first in the division, right? To me, the Rays moved the needle the most because they did enough, in my opinion, to stay ahead of their competition in that division, right? Which is, the Yankees are 2.5 back, the Red Sox are 5 back. To me, I would definitely pick the Rays, and I kind of want to touch on the Luis Ariz thing too. Um, I just don't think at the end of the day, I wasn't very high on us bringing him back. But I just don't think modern baseball knows how to deal with a throwback player like Luis Ariz. Guy doesn't strike out a lot. He doesn't walk a ton either, but he makes contact and puts the ball in play, right? So I think modern baseball has a very tough issue correctly assessing a value to him of how much he's worth, right? And now that he played second in the first half of the season, like he's shown you he can play that position a lot better than we originally believed that he could do, right? Phillies, don't boo our guy, Luis. He's a good man. Everybody that's played with him loved him, so enjoy.
Best.
And I thought it was interesting. Bryce Harper said even before the deadline that he was bringing his outfield glove with him on this road trip because
Yeah.
he saw this coming, right? Smallest needle mover. It's not about the size, guys. It's about how you use it. But let's start with you on the smallest needle mover, Coop.
Feels like an attack. No, thinking through
I was
thinking
like,
through plays that were made. I mean, there were a lot of moves this deadline, and I'm gonna cheat on this answer a little bit because I wasn't able to pay as much close attention.
Yeah.
I had some prior obligations today. Um, but there were so many trades that were just like EFA saved cash,
Yeah.
international bonus pool space, AAA relievers that register, 0.0 in win probability metrics for teams, right? There was a lot of 40-man housekeeping this deadline.
Yeah.
In previous years, I feel like I've seen more teams make plays, whether it was, okay, we're going for it. Not necessarily this year, but in the next couple, right?
Yeah.
Like we're going for it type plays, or we are rebuilding. And we certainly saw that this deadline, right? Like we already said, we saw teams like the Giants, the Orioles to a smaller degree, the Angels, saying like, all right, we're done for now. Let's retool, rebuild. And we saw teams that are looking to make pushes. The Padres, they filled the holes they need to fill. To try and make a run. We saw the Dodgers lock in, arguably the best rotation we've seen
In the
from an
history
MLB
of
team.
baseball,
And
yeah.
I didn't
I
want to
don't
say
think so.
history of
I'll touch on
baseball. I
that
think I
later.
might be a little too young for that, but it's a damn good rotation,
Yeah.
right?
It's
But
good. It's good.
there were a lot of moves that were just housekeeping.
Yeah.
From what I was able to see. Make a little change to our 40-man roster because we can. So nothing that really stuck out to me is like they really did that.
Yeah.
Whether it was necessarily a particularly good or bad trade, but yeah, that's where I'm looking at when it comes to a smaller needle mover.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, it's like one that just slipped in there where I was just sort of like, why did you do that? It was Victor Vodnik for Connor Norby.
Yeah.
Like, it was just weird. Victor Vodnik has got to be one of like his savant page. If you guys, I mean, we don't have it because he's a Rocky and who really cares?
Yeah.
But like he throws his fastball
Yep.
like 54% of the time. He's like 99% in velo and like 13% in average and like run value. So he has like one of the fastest fastballs in the league. That's like one of the worst. And he's going to a place where people hit a lot of home runs, like not as many as Coors, but he's going to a place where people hit a lot of. And the only thing I think on Norby's page that he's really high in is his range. Other than that, he's like not registering or blue, like ice cold and everything. And it's just sort of like one garbage thing for another garbage thing at the deadline from
Yeah.
two teams that like I really thought the Marlins were up to something. I thought they were going to make some noise and they have just like spectacularly
Yeah.
collapsed the end of July, like into August, like really awfully. I think they had a 10-game losing streak. They swept the Phillies and then they immediately lost like 2 out of 3 or maybe even got swept the next series. So baseball makes a whole bunch of sense. But another thing I'm going to touch on, dude, in terms of the best rotation of all time, the 4 aces of Philadelphia, I think, is the best rotation I've ever seen.
Okay.
You got 2 guys in there that got MVP votes, 3 people who got Cy Young votes. You had 3 guys who were under a 3 ERA and threw more than 180 innings. Just because I saw that and I was like, I don't really think it's the best rotation I've ever seen.
On paper, maybe it's close. We'll see.
On paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
On paper.
Yeah.
On paper, it's close. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, Connor Norby for Victor Vodnik. And I think it was a 1-for-1, just like for each other's. And they're both young, not really making a whole lot of money on bad teams.
Yeah.
So that was the one for me.
So I have a hot take on my smallest needle mover, but I kind of want to start with, a point that I've kind of made in our group chat over the times that the baseball gods have a very interesting way of keeping things interesting and fair for the rest of the field. For as much that Dodgers have signed and spent money. These arms haven't stayed healthy. Blake Snell has been on long IL stints, during his tenure there. Glass now gets hurt every now and then. And then even some other signings, like to kind of fill some holes, like Conforto last year didn't do well. Cal Tucker's not doing well. So I feel like the baseball gods have a very humorous way of like, hold on, we can't just let you walk through everything.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to have some trials and tribulation to get to the ultimate prize, right? Which moves me to my like hot take. The smallest needle mover, Scooble to the Dodgers. You went from the favorites to win the World Series and to get a three-peat, and you added the word overwhelming to it. Big whoop. Like you were gonna be there anyways, right? So, um, so,
Yeah.
um, so that's like my little hot take. Yeah, I know Scooble increases their chance drastically, right? But he is still just one guy, right? And he has proven that
Yeah.
he you can hit him in the playoffs. The Guardians did that last year, right? So like to me, that's not a major needle mover. Like you're already going to be there in October anyways. It's just a matter of how many games is going to take you to get it done, right? So, you might beat some teams in 5 and 6 versus 7 now. Like, I don't necessarily think that moved the needle that much for them. They're already good before Terry Skubal, right? And
Yeah.
interesting, we'll see we'll see what the baseball guys does the rest of the year, right? Because, arms that they've acquired have historically had issues. I think the most durable one has been Yamamoto by far, right? Other than that, everybody that they've
Yeah.
signed has had their, fair share of injuries. Were there any win-win trades out there today, boys?
I think so.
I got one
I
in my
think
mind.
the quickest one that jumps out to me, and this team isn't winning a lot, but I think this trade is a win-win. I think it's Clay Holmes and Tyrone Taylor for Jefferson Rojas.
Yeah.
And we just did this whole thing talking about prospects, but they sent, you know, guys who, particularly in Clay Holmes, who had value, and they brought in their highest rated prospect at the deadline. And Clay Holmes, he's a big ground ball pitcher who goes to a team with a really great defense in Chicago, probably the best infield in the National League, if not all of baseball. And I think it's just a match made in heaven, especially for somebody like Clay Holmes. And I think the Mets fans finally have something to be excited about. I think I probably follow them closer than most people just because of my familial association. But I think Jefferson Rojas is their highest rated prospect by a big margin, especially because they went out and purged the farm system last year at the deadline to bring in guys who didn't work out. Um, so that for me, for both where both teams are at, I think is an absolute win-win trade.
We got Coop.
Yeah, this is going to be the one time that I'm going to mention the Padres in these awards, and I'm landing on the Robbie Ray trade.
Yeah.
I think that San Francisco successfully this entire deadline capitalized on it being a seller's market, and they
Mhm.
got as much as we just talked about how they're not absurdly good, they got a pretty good prospect haul for a guy who's 34,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and then on our side of things, where and as much as I talked great about Robbie Ray earlier, talked great about Casey Mize earlier, more so about Casey than Robbie. Um, I want to note that the reason I think both these deals are good for us as Padres fans is that we only have so long of a window, or rather, we've created a window by locking ourselves into these big contracts, right? Everyone talks about the Manny Machado contract being kind of shit now compared to what it was before. The Fernando Tatis deal, the Xander Bogaerts deal, right? There's a lot of contracts we're kind of stuck in. Um, Even to a degree, the Jackson Merrill contract, right? It's an incredibly team-friendly deal, one that we probably could move if we wanted to, but it's still a contract that pushes to what, 2033, I want to say, 2034.
Yeah. 30,
It's
no,
in line with
it's
is it
37.
more?
Yeah,
37.
it's
God
like
damn.
it's like
37.
12 years,
So,
isn't it?
Yeah,
Jesus.
it's
So,
so he signed for 13 a year for 12.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
wow,
think
I
that's what it
could have
was. And it was
sworn
in
it was 9 for
24.
15. Anyways, point being, we've locked into these big contracts, right? And so while these players are effectively stuck with us, now's the time to go out and get players. And so a guy like Robbie Ray, while his career will probably end before some of these contracts expire, or it'll at least fall off a lot, he's got a sub 2 ERA over his last 2 months.
Yeah.
Um, and I think he's a guy who really helps with our wild card push. So I think that's a big win-win trade on the deadline, with the Giants looking to jumpstart their pipeline for the future, and us making sure we can push our wild card chances without draining our bullpen.
Yeah.
Because another big thing to note with getting more starters who can eat innings, the bullpen will get hurt less, right? They're going to have less usage. Um, maybe some of the numbers will drop a little bit with some of the innings and the Ks that are getting put up, but I'm fine with that. I want a guy who can go 6 innings, and then we have a guy who goes 7, 8, 9, right? Or even a 5-2-1-1, right? With a guy like Wandy Peralta, who's shown that he can pitch 2 innings pretty
Yep.
consistently, right? I know Bob loves Wandy over there, so that's my win-win trade of the deadline. Of course, it's one I'm paying more attention to, being a Padres fan, but that's what I've landed on.
Yeah, I don't.
So quick thing about Maryland's 2035. He has a club option that if he finishes in the top 5 of MVP voting, he has an option on the end of 34 to put a shit to 35. So
Okay. So yeah, it is 2034. That's when most of these contracts expire, in that like 32 to 34
yeah,
window. I think most of them are in that
yeah,
33 to 34. So that's our window to really push, because if we're gonna have these contracts, we got to play around them.
Yep.
we got
Absolutely
to.
in full agreement with that. I don't really have like a specific win-win trade that I can think of this deadline with so many trades happening, but I think anytime a seller could offload talent to a contender for some prospect is in return, I think that's what you consider as a win-win, right? Both teams kind of achieve their
Yeah.
objectives. You got an expiring deal, that's going to come off your books anyways, and you got some prospects from them, right? Obviously, the name of the game is the more years of control, the more prospects you get back, or the better prospects you get back. So anytime, a Giants could unload a Robbie Ray, a Tigers could unload a Tariq Skubal and a Casey Mize and get some prospects in return. I think that's a win-win for everybody involved, right? So, yeah, trade deadline, darling. You guys got one of those?
Yeah,
I
I
do.
think so. You want to go first, Coop?
Sure, it's the Cubs. The NL is wide the fuck open. It is wide open right now.
Yeah.
If you look at, I mean, I think the NL is far better than the AL, in all honesty. Um, but looking at the National League here, I want to pull it up to make sure my info is correct, um, on wild card standings. Um, because, like, I mean, the American League West, there's 3 teams at 55 or higher wins, right? Or 3 teams separated by 3 games. You look at the American League or sorry, I'm on the American League. I'm talking about the National League. My bad. Point being that there's teams that are far and away the best, right? The Brewers 6.5 games ahead. The Braves are 7.5 games ahead. The Dodgers are 10 games ahead, right?
Yep.
Those divisions are probably sealed, but that wild card race is tight. There's a lot of teams in that 58 to 62 win area. A lot of teams that can sneak into a wild card, and so for the Cubs being
Yeah.
on that top end, I believe they're sitting in the 1 seed for the wild card right now. Um,
Mhm.
Kind of locking that in, or maybe even making a push against the Brewers. Like we said, the Cubs made a lot of changes, the Brewers didn't.
Yeah.
And so with the National League Central being the division that is, I think, most in reach, as the Phillies are looking, I mean, they definitely improved with their trades, I think, this today,
Mhm.
but they're not looking super strong. They've kind of been on a downward trend for the last 4 or 5 years, to be honest. Um, and then the National League West is probably out of reach for any teams,
For sure
and
out of
that the
reach. Yeah.
Cubs have a legitimate chance.
Yeah.
So shoring up their rotation, entirely, almost entirely upheaving their rotation, um, shoring up the back of the bullpen, right? I think they made a lot of good changes to their pitching that could land them the National League Central, and so I think they are the trade deadline winner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna go with the Cubs, so I'm gonna pivot to my second choice, which was what Billy brought up, the Rays. Even though I'd badmouth Freddie Peralta, like I brought up when they should have traded for Skubal, everybody who throws it the Trop loves it, and especially somebody like Freddie Peralta who's looking for a bounce back. The Rays probably have historically the best pitching lab in baseball. They somehow continue to just churn out guys who are demons. I mean, James Shields, he had his best years with the Rays. David Price, he was a beast when he was with the Rays. I mean, even though he doesn't throw a lot, Rasmussen, I think he might be hurt now, I'm not sure, but he's a dog. And I think that getting somebody in there like Freddie, who has shown in the past, he received Cy Young votes. and he's somebody who in the playoffs for the Brewers looked really good. And especially picking up a guy like Liam Hicks, who is 98th percentile in chase rate, who is 98th percentile in walk rate, and just sort of adds base runners to that offense that I think is one of the more underrated offenses in baseball. With they have Junior Caminero. Everybody talks about Jonathan Aranda, who is a great hitter who won the batting title last year in the AL with Bo Bichette. I'm excited about this Rays team. I don't personally know any Rays fans. I don't know anybody who does. But if you're a Rays fan, congratulations, dude. You guys had a great deadline and are probably going to win the AL East because nobody else really picked up anybody super noteworthy other than the Red Sox with Rutschman. And I'm not as big of a Rutschman believer as Coop is. I don't think it moves the needle for me nearly as much. And I think that looking back, they will have a great deadline. Um, but
Yeah, I
yeah,
had to put
I
some good
also think the
juju out
Cubs
there.
have
He's on my fantasy team. He's on my fantasy team. I
you
had to
got
put
to
some
do
good
it.
juju out there.
You got to do what you got to do. Um, but also, I think the Padres had a case because they added the most talent. Like they didn't add the most, but they added the most talented pieces out of the teams that did work today. The Cubs added a lot of people, but I think Gossman's kind of cooked. I'm not really gonna lie. I think Gossman's kind of cooked, and we all know that Wrigley can kind of be a launch pad if you get something into the jet stream. And I don't know if that's really gonna age super well.
Yeah.
And I just don't know enough about um, Zephyr Jan. Like every time he came into the game we played him, I got excited,
Yeah.
which I don't like it when we pick up people like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely us or the Rays.
Yeah, so looking at the wild card standing as it is today, the Cubs are 4 ahead. The Phillies are half a game ahead. The Diamondbacks hold the last spot. We are 1 game behind them. The Marlins are 1.5 behind the Diamondbacks. The Pirates are 3 games back. The Cardinals are 4 games back. The Nationals are 5 games back. I'm gonna go ahead and say the Cubs are irrelevant. If we want a home game for the wild card round, we want to catch the Cubs, right? But just looking at who we have to catch, the Diamondbacks, the Phillies, right? The Marlins sold, the Pirates bought, the Cardinals sold, the Nationals sold. The Reds didn't really do anything, right? They're 5.5 back, and they're
No.
probably out of it for all we know. So I'm looking at us chasing Arizona and Philadelphia. Those are our our biggest worries in the wild card, right? I don't think the Diamondbacks did anything today. Um, the Phillies,
I mean, one trade.
yeah,
Got a new bar.
the Phillies made some moves. But does Luis Ariz really move the needle that much for them, right? Who knows? Um, the Cubs, I agree. I think Gossman is done. We saw him when he was in San Diego. He looked very done. Just doesn't really throw with the velocity he used to throw at anymore, right? So if I had to pick a trade deadline darling, it'd be us. I was very vocal about our offense coming alive. Even when the offense struggled in June and May, I was like, this team isn't that far away. If Manny does what Manny's paid to do, if Jackson does what he's paid to do, if Fernando does what he's paid to do, we're cooking. In July, we saw just that, right? And with the Morhone and a Mason Miller in the back end of the bullpen, you're looking at 7 innings of baseball, right? And we went out and addressed those first 7 innings by getting Casey Mize and Robbie Ray, right? So I'm gonna say we moved the needle the most out of all the wild card contenders that we're looking at, right? I'm not worried about the Dodgers because I don't think we catch the Dodgers. And if I had to be completely honest, I don't want to face the Dodgers in the postseason, unless it's like the NLCS. I don't want to face them in the first round. Um, so like looking at who we're chasing right now, we easily did more than any of the teams that we're chasing in this pack, as far as like the trade deadline goes, right? So that's my pick. I'm gonna be a little bit of a homer. Let's switch a little bit here. We're about a little over an hour in to the show, but let's quickly run through the upcoming series. So we got, let's see real quick. So we got the Arizona series that's coming up. that's going on right now as we're recording. I do want to note that the Padres don't have a scheduled starter for tomorrow and the game after that. They have Bueller slotted in for Thursday. So I do believe we kind of touched on it on the show. There's a very good chance that Casey Mize makes his debut tomorrow, and Robbie Ray makes his debut on Wednesday. It could be Ray on Tuesday and the other way around, but Robbie hasn't pitched since Thursday, so he would be fully rested as well. And then the starter after Bueller is to be determined against Houston. So, we're gonna start the month with Arizona, Houston, Milwaukee. I'm sure we'll probably record before the Cleveland series. So let's just dive into those three teams that are in front of us right now. Talk to me, fellas, about your thoughts on the upcoming three series here. Let's start with you, Coop.
Yeah. Like we just said, the Diamondbacks are one of those teams we're really chasing, especially being a division rival there. Um, I think this series is honestly pretty critical for the wild card race, just showing how we're going to look, right? Especially if we're expecting Casey and Robbie to both pitch. Um, you know, how do they look their first time in the brown and gold? Or it looks like it's going to be the tan and gold because we're wearing those ones on the road right now. So I think that's all I'm really seeing on this front is like it's a prove it series, right? They're a team that we're right behind. Can we overtake them in this series? I'm optimistic about a 3-1, hoping for a 3-1. And I've got some advanced analytics here. Looking at Chase Field, it's historically an XBH field, right? People hit gappers, people hit bombs at Chase Field, and they've built their rotation as such, and they're really good at forcing ground balls. I want to be fully honest with y'all. I have it on the screen right now, and they're forcing a lot of ground balls as we're in the bottom of
Yeah,
the fourth.
yeah.
So we in this series we definitely need to look for those fastballs up in the zone, and force those extra base hits, get people in scoring position. If not, hitting it all the way out of the park. Um, those are all my big thoughts on this series. Michael King is getting his pitch count under control right now, and I think we'll be done with this episode probably around the 6th or 7th inning. So hoping
Yeah.
to catch the end of that one more fully locked in.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I think for me that I was just looking at the schedule for the rest of the year. So it's really this Brewers set, Diamondback set, and then we play the Rays at the end of August, and we play the very last the series of the year against the Diamondbacks and Dodgers.
Yeah.
Aside from a Yankee set, we don't play anybody else who's in it.
Yeah.
We have a very advantageous runway into October. And this is a team that didn't really do very much at the deadline. They don't have a great bullpen. They don't have a great starting rotation. It is a great sort of, especially on Tuesday and Wednesday, sort of show me series from our new pickups because they swing it really well. And Corbin Carroll is a guy who has burned us a lot. Ketel Marte is a guy who has burned us a lot. And I'm very excited to see sort of how they match up. But this is the best chance we have to immediately jump back in right after the deadline and sort of invite this like good energy heading into some of the bigger series in the rest of the year. Because if we come off the deadline, if we win 3 out of these 4 games, we're immediately right back into those conversations and 3 games over our next competition.
Yep.
So this is sort of it. Like, not to sort of boil it all down to these 3 games or 4 games, but it kind of is. And we hit Gowan really well. They just didn't upgrade their pitching, and New Bar doesn't really move the needle for me at all. So I think this is a perfect opportunity to sort of pounce and leapfrog into that second spot in the division and third spot, maybe even fourth spot in the wild card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it probably wouldn't be too much of an overstatement to say this is probably the most important series of the season right now that we're in, right? Because we're 1 game behind the Diamondback in the wild card race, 1 game behind them in the division. The division is not really relevant because the Dodgers won that thing in April, pretty much, right? So, this is to me a very important series. I'm with Coop. I think 3 out of 4 is doable. I'd be happy with a split. I will cry if we lose 3 out of 4. But I think 3 out of the 4 for us is very possible, especially with King on the hill tonight, and we should be seeing our new guys in the next 2, right? The only ones that's like, I don't know if we're gonna win this is the Walker Bueller starting the finale, right? But even then, Walker has been has surprised us at times, giving us 5 solid innings, right? So I think looking ahead at the 3 series, I think we could take 3 out of 4 from Arizona. Wouldn't be surprised if we swept Houston. Houston is one of those teams that's, I don't know. I I wouldn't be surprised, but I definitely see 2 out of 3, as it looks like it'll be King on Saturday. We don't know who's going to start on Friday. Sunday, most likely going to be Casey Mize if we go King Mize and Robbie Ray. The Brewer series looking ahead, it doesn't look like we're gonna get Miz this time around. So I feel more confident not getting Miz at home. Bueller stated to start the game 2. Game 1, there's nobody announced. I'm gonna assume Robbie Ray and then whoever our fifth starter is to close that series. So I can see us taking 2 out of 3 from Houston and Milwaukee. But if we win this next 3 series, like we're right back into it. Like things are gonna feel amazing again, right? Like there's no other way around. And then not like Bob, said, not looking too far ahead. There's not a lot of contenders on the schedule for the rest of this month, right? After Milwaukee, we got Cleveland, who is a contender. The Mets, well, we shouldn't take the Mets for granted because the Mets can surprise us as they did, right? Minnesota, who
Yeah.
did that buy/sell. Pittsburgh, depending if we have to face Skeens or not, but with the way he's going this year, who cares? But I think this next 3 series are very winnable. And given the fact that it looks like we might miss Mizorowski against Milwaukee, is looking more favorable to me at this point. So anything to add on the upcoming series? I know you guys didn't touch on the Houston Milwaukee series, so if you guys want to jump in and talk about those 2 real quick.
I think you covered it. I mean, I think Houston and San Diego are 2 teams that are sort of trending in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
I think Houston this entire season, their offense has been great, but their pitching staff has never really been able to achieve liftoff.
Yeah.
And the Brewers, their pitching staff scares me, but honestly, I'm not really expecting to win that series because we have so much winnable baseball that if we do end up taking that series, that's just a plus.
Valid.
And gives me even more sort of like hope, being like, this is a playoff team. We can definitely make some noise and if we get hot at the right time.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, avoid Jordan. Don't give up the Jordan home run.
Yep.
And then let's play good baseball. That's it, really.
Before we jump to Coop for the series, for the next the Houston and the Milwaukee series, worth noting that Hunter Brown is also not slated to start against us when they come to town, so that's another like good dodge for us there. Not that I'm afraid of these pitchers, but whenever you can miss an ace when you play a team, you do it, right? It just increases our chance of winning. But Coop, talk to me about Houston and Milwaukee.
Yeah, always a good feeling. Just touch a little bit quickly on those 2. Houston, they're a team that's sitting about the same record as us. They're leading a somewhat weak division. Weak might be the wrong word. They don't have any real standouts, right? But they are in a hot streak right now, so I think they are going to be a pretty good test. I want to say they've won 8 of their last 10 or 9 of their last 10. So looking back, we're coming back to Petco. This is quickest road trip of all time in Arizona. Petco's a pretty pitcher-friendly park, right, as we all know. And Houston's pitchers have really good vertical break on their 4 seams, incredible horizontal sweep on breaking stuff. So our top of the order bats, I think they need to shorten their swings a little more, be a little more cautious about chasing outside, especially because we've got to push them to the bullpen, right?
Yep.
Push them to the bullpen early. And then as far as our pitching goes, I think if we script our pitch sequences kind of similarly, right? High fastballs, low and away changeups, because they got fly ball pull, right? They get balls in the air. And so if we can keep our fastballs high and inside, changeups low and away, I think we can neutralize that a little bit. And looking forward to who'd be pitching, we get back to the top of our pitching order at the back end of that series. I think we'll probably have a bullpen game of sorts for that game 1, but can't be sure. We'll have to see who Stammen trots out. And then looking at that Brewers series, I think that one is a benchmark with our talent, right? Can we really compete against some of these top dogs?
Yeah.
Looking at some of those more advanced analytics, the Brewers are damn good at keeping their K rate low. So pairing our fastballs with breaking balls that go out of the zone, that's the type of thing that spikes whiff percentage and can really be an equalizer for us. And then on our offensive side of things, Milwaukee has a kind of an interesting formula where they really focus on their some of their relievers going multiple innings. It's a big part of what they do. So if we can get our pitch counts up early, right? By the fourth, fifth inning, get their pitch counts up rather. Um, I think it messes with their scripting a little bit of how they put their pitching together. So I think again, like we said, these are all three winnable series. Although Michael King did just give up a 3-run bomb, put us down 0-3, but it's still the
Spoiler
fourth.
alert.
So I know.
It's all
I'm
good.
sorry. The
It's all
pod comes
good.
out
It's all
tomorrow,
good. It's all good.
but the pod comes out
Yeah.
tomorrow. I didn't want you to tune into the game and see us down 0-3. I figured I might as well rip the Band-Aid off now.
I appreciate.
But there's still 5 innings to go.
Yeah.
There's still 5 innings to go. So that first game is still winnable.
Yeah.
And I think all three of those series are winnable, if not splittable for that 4 game.
Agreed.
Against the D-backs.
Yeah.
So definitely an interesting couple weeks ahead of us, or week and a half rather. And I'm excited to see coming back for our next episode after these 3 series. How did they go? And how do we look as a team?
Real quick, I know Pivetta
Gave
is
it up to Tim Tawa.
real quick, I know
Sorry, Bob?
I know
What?
I know
Oh, God.
we talked a little bit about Nick Pivetta and his rehab start slated for tomorrow, I believe. Looking ahead of that Burrow series, if we're the 10th, there's no slated starter. I'm going to assume is Robbie Ray, given or Mize, whoever goes this series. And then Tuesday is supposed to be Walker Buehler, and then there whoever number 5 starter is for the finale. Wouldn't be surprised if we see Nick Pivetta this series because that's kind of nearing the date that he needs to be activated before his player option becomes a club option. And I know the Padres want to facilitate to make sure he comes back in time to kind of help him keep that player option as well. So wouldn't be surprised if we see Pivetta. But anyways, long episode. Let's kind of wrap up here and talk about our closing statements. So the topic today is season outlook. So give me your general thoughts about the deadline and then your season outlook for the rest of the way, given what just happened today. So let's start with Bob.
Yeah, I've always said that the trade deadline is like a second opening day. I think it's the real start of the second half of the baseball season. I think heading into the deadline, you see people doing weird stuff, calling up people from AAA to sort of have like a show me look to see sort of what they have in the future. And I feel a lot better about our situation today than I did opening day heading into the season. I think we have a better rotation. I think our bats are hot. Nobody could have expected the season Ty France is having, and he's having a career year that deserves a paycheck. We should pay that man. But we have to play above 500 baseball. That's just the mark, I think, for the rest of the year to have a real shot at making it into the postseason and having a legit shot to play some playoff baseball, maybe even host a playoff baseball game. And I like our odds against a lot of the teams going into the postseason. I mean, other than like LA, there's not LA and Philly just because Philly's like the boogeyman,
Yep.
but like we wouldn't really even match up if we were both wild card teams. I think we play the Braves really well. I like our chances against the Brewers, and even in the 98, 99, and 2000 Yankees lost, and they lost to the Arizona Diamondbacks. It can happen.
Yep.
I think why not us is sort of the motto I'm having. I'm totally like burning the ships. Like this is the last season before a lockout potentially. I'm just going to enjoy watching my baseball team. I think that's sort of the motto. Like we can do it kind of. And I think that we have a legit shot at making the postseason. And then from there, it's a brand new season. We all know that. So finish out strong, play above 500 baseball. And we got Nicky P and Musgrove coming back potentially soon. So I feel pretty good.
Yes. Coop.
Yeah, my thoughts are pretty in line with everything Bob said. I mean, if our offense stays strong, I know he briefly said it, but I want to touch on it with a little more detail.
Yeah.
If you count Samad Taylor and Miguel Andujar, given they had far more limited sample sizes, I want to say it was about 13 at bats for Samad and 30-ish for Andujar. We got 8 guys who had an 800 OPS or higher in the month of July. League average is 720. So the bats are getting hot. Jake Cronenworth started proving me wrong this month. I've been a Jake Cronenworth hater for a long time. Bill can attest to it. Since the off season, I've been a Cronenworth hater, but he's done everything in his power to prove me wrong this month. So with the bats heating up, with pitching help, and then hopefully Pivetta and Musgrove coming back, I definitely think with that offense we can float. And then with Pivetta and Musgrove, maybe just with Pivetta, but with Pivetta and Musgrove coming back, I definitely think this is a complete ball club and one that can make that push to host a playoff game or a few more. If we can make that push to the NLDS, and possibly even an LCS if the rest of the NL starts looking a little bit weaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right with you as far as my season outlook goes. I'm gonna hold your cups out. I'm gonna fill it with hopium. You look at the hallmarks of every great baseball team. You have good starting pitching. Your stars produce. You have a dominant back end bullpen, and your role players are role playing, right? So our stars are starting to hit. Manny, Merrill, Tatis looked all great in July. To be fair, Tatis has looked great all year, just hasn't had the power numbers, right? He's become the prime Ricky Henderson, for a better lack of comparison here as far as leadoff standards go, right? The bullpen's dominant. I don't quite trust Jeremiah Estrada yet. Jason Adam looks like he's going to be out for a little bit, but you have Adrian Morhone who's got your 8th inning, possibly 7th if you need him to. You have Mason Miller, the best closer in baseball right now, and probably one of the best closers we've seen in a long time. All the characteristics are there, right? So what's left? We need Casey Mize to be good. We need Robbie Ray to be good. We need Nick Pivetta to be back and to be good. And we need Joe Musgrove to not be dog because he's going to be the number 5 starter in this rotation and probably won't pitch in the playoffs, right? So all the tools are there, and this team is coming together at the right time. So I firmly believe this team can make a run. Now, I want to avoid Philly. I want to avoid LA. I'd rather watch those two guys beat each other up before we have to face them. I think if we want to get past an LCS, we have to get past one of those two teams, and both of those two teams have been our big brothers that have beaten our asses the past couple of years, right? Like I'm not even gonna troll here. Like the Dodgers have played us very well, the Phillies have played us very well ever since that's what in video, right? So I'd rather those two beat each other up, but I think we could beat the Cubs in a postseason matchup. We could beat the Cardinals in a postseason matchup. We could definitely beat Milwaukee in a postseason matchup, right? Am I as confident against the Dodgers and the Phillies? Not necessarily. I still don't think we really have an elite arm talent in our rotation that can get away with missing middle, right? Like when you throw 99, you can miss middle a lot more than somebody who throws 93. But I'm full of hopium. I think AJ addressed our biggest need today. Now, would I have liked us to acquire another bat to play left field? Absolutely. But with the limited prospect pool and not giving up Ethan Salas, that's the best it can get. So I'm full of hopium. So if you're listening, watching, wherever you get your podcast, hope you had your cup up because I poured that pretty heavy. But what are your final thoughts before we close up? Let's start with you this time, Coop.
Keep the faith. That's about it.
Short and simple.
Yeah. I think to help you keep the faith, we have 5 guys who hit over 300 in July.
Yep.
And we have brand new toys in the toy bin, and they're going to go out and they're going to throw and probably go more than 3 innings. And, not to read into too much about like what players say in like media scrums, because definitely they try to sound good and say the right things. Adrian Morhone said he wanted to be a Padre. Everybody knows he wants to be a Padre. Might make it a lot more likely he'll re-sign. So keep the faith. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'll touch on one last thing. So the arms that are gonna get discarded, so the Griffith Canning, the Marquez, Lucas Giolito's of the world, all 3 of those hold mutual options with the club with a buyout for 2027. So if there's a baseball season, I don't foresee them coming back. But I'm with you, fellas. There's really nothing else we can do but keep the faith because we don't play the game on the field. So again, As always, we know your time is valuable. We know your day's busy with work and everything else in between. If you took a minute, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, or listen to the whole damn thing, we appreciate you from the bottom of our hearts. But until then, we'll see you next time, and hopefully, we'll see you next time coming off of three consecutive series of wins. All right, peace out.
First take like Stephen A. Couple artists I crossed paths with back then had me leaving faith. Nowadays they're asking me for my feature rate. I tell them I don't wanna feed the snakes. Just go away, you should be ashamed. Lot of luggage like TSA.